Hi there. So you'd like to know how to choose a property for your first restaurant. So in this there's many factors to consider, so hopefully by the end of this video you'll have a better understanding of some of the thought processes that go in behind choosing your first restaurant building or property, and some of the different options that might be involved in that. Now, the very first thing I would say is, if you want to start your own restaurant, is choose, before anything else, choose the area that you want to be in for your restaurant. Uh, if I would say, when you open a new restaurant, you're going to have to be there a lot at the start, especially at the start when the business is just new. It's vital that you, as the business owner, are there and are part of the opening process and are watching everything that's happening in the business and learning and understanding. So, as you're going to have to be there a lot, it's probably better to have a location that's easy for you to commute to. So I would say that would be the first thing when you're choosing your area. Somewhere that you're willing to travel to every day, work long hours, and it's not going to be too much difficulty for you getting home at the end of the shift and getting back in the next day. So yeah, if you have to commute an hour and a half, it might be difficult, or more difficult. It's not impossible, I've done it myself, but I've had certain systems in place to make sure that can happen. If something goes wrong in the restaurant, how quickly can you get there? And I think, especially if it's new, there's going to be more things potentially going wrong in the restaurant. More mistakes are going to be made because all your staff are going to be new. The chefs aren't solid with the menu yet. They're going to be a bit sticky on point. So yeah, the level of mistakes is higher when you open any new restaurant. So definitely being there is important, and definitely if somebody phones in sick, if somebody doesn't turn up for their shift, then, or if something's broken and some electrical issue or some maintenance problem, yeah, how quickly can you get there as well? So once you've chosen your location, then the next interesting point would be, do you want to buy a building or do you want to lease a building? So both have pros and cons, so I'll talk a bit about that. If you want to buy the building, then obviously it will be yours, you own it. So as the owner of the building, maybe you've got a mortgage on it. Every month you're paying off that mortgage, so essentially one day you won't have that cost as part of your business, whereas as opposed to leasing, where you would always be paying a rent. So eventually, when you can pay off your mortgage, then the business is a lot easier to make viable. You have no landlord, so essentially if you wanted to make structural changes to the building, it would be as simple as planning permission and then consent, and you'd be able to go ahead. Whereas if you were renting, you would have to have landlord permission for any changes, major changes like that. Essentially, you can do what you like with it to an extent. The downside to buying, I would say the main downside to buying, is your exit strategy. If you look for restaurants for sale, you'll find a lot, and if you look to see how long they've been on the market for, you'll find some of them have been on for years and years. I've viewed properties myself where there's been people that want to sell up and retire, but they're unable to because they can't sell it. People are tied to their business, and they can't do anything about it because it's their income, and they can't afford to shut it either. So some situations where that happens, the business is in a distressed state because the owners are desperate to sell. And when a business becomes in a distressed state, people will find opportunities to either get their business at a much reduced rate, or even for no money up front. So there, it can be difficult if you're in a situation where you've owned a building and you can't get rid of it. On the other hand, it can be good if you can sell it straight away, and there are occasions that happen as well. So it's not all bad, but that is one variable that can happen. Leasing is something, the strategy that I use, and it's for me it's preferential because there's various different strategies I use to make it work for me. One being that during the signing of the lease, there's negotiations that can be made that can be beneficial. One example would be perhaps a break clause that you could negotiate in potentially with the landlord, where after a certain period of time either party could walk away, or you could, or only you could walk away if it wasn't working out. In general, one of the upsides is an exit strategy for a lease, because you have a set term, and if it's going well you can keep it going, and if it's not going well you can walk away. So you're not tied to the building the same way that you would be if you bought it. Well, you can walk away. So you're not tied to the building the same way that you would be if you bought it. Another upside to leasing is you can sell the lease. If you have a 10-year lease and after 5 years you've built up an amazing business, it's very profitable, but circumstances have changed, you want to do something different, you want to go into a new line of work, you need to move away, whatever it is, you can then put that lease on the market and sell it. You could sell it with a 5-year lease, or you could ask the landlord to extend it, and the longer the lease the more money you'll get for it, but essentially you can sell your business and walk away with a lump sum at the end of it, which is also an upside. The main downsides to leasing would be essentially the fact that most leases are full insuring and repairing leases, which essentially means that you're responsible for some of the insurance, which is an annual cost, and also you would be responsible for any repairs being done to the building, and it's usually internally and external repairs, so you would be responsible for any works needing done during the tenancy agreement. The second downside to having a lease is the fact that you're essentially paying off your landlord's mortgage, so he's getting to pay off the building and you're paying that for him. And the other sort of major downside to leasing would be permissions. If you did want to change something, like I said earlier, you would have to get the landlord's permission. So let's just say, for the purpose of this video, you've decided you want to lease a building and you want to have it in a certain area. So a quick Google search will tell you restaurants to lease in this area, and then what will come up from that is a bunch of restaurants that are up for lease. Now, the reasons that most of them are up for lease is that because they failed previously. So now we have to start analysing the reasons why they failed. You might not ever know, but you can work some stuff out for yourself. Once you've figured that out, then you can decide what you can do to change that. One of the reasons it might have failed would be due to incompetence. It's the least likely scenario, but it is a possibility that people took on, came into some money, started a restaurant, didn't really know what they were doing and didn't know how to run it, and just sort of failed. It does happen, but as I say, it's the least likely scenario. Second scenario would be there's no footfall in the area. So somebody's opened a restaurant, looks great, looks beautiful, but nobody's walking past. And in a perfect world, we'd all like to live off our reputations and have our restaurants full every night and fully booked out, because people want to come to our restaurant and see how amazing it is. But unfortunately it doesn't always work like that, and you have to rely on footfall. And if there's no footfall, in your area, then it's not a great place. So what can you do about that? Well, I would say if you do see a restaurant you like, then, and you think that might be the case, that yeah, it's maybe a quiet street or whatever, go and look at it and go and spend some time there. I mean, spend a lot of time there if you're really serious about opening a restaurant in that location. If there's a coffee shop nearby, sit in the coffee shop over lunch, go in and spend like serious time in it, and see how many people are walking past. Count them. Count how many people walk past over lunchtime, over breakfast time, over dinner time, and the sort of peak times that people would normally be going out for food. If you know, maybe it's next to a nightclub, maybe it's 2 in the morning would be the peak time for footfall. You know, but you have to find out. So that's the main thing. So, what can you do about footfall? Well, it's if it's in the wrong location, and you could have a look and see what it was previously, to what it the last business that shut down. So if it was another restaurant that failed and another restaurant that failed before that, it would suggest that yeah, it possibly could be the footfall would be the issue with that one. The third issue could be the wrong concept. So this is really important, and also I'll go into this in another video about choosing your concept, but essentially there's 2 different scenarios. The first being that you choose the concept to fit the location, and the second one is you choose the location to fit the concept. So if you have chosen an area, you've chosen a restaurant you like, then I would say that it's probably best that you look at the concept based on your abilities and based on what would work in that particular area. If this restaurant you're looking at has been an Italian restaurant, and then you look and you see another 5 Italian restaurants on that street, then there's a possibility that that was the wrong concept that was picked for that area. So maybe people need something different there. What are the people looking for? What are they wanting, the people that are walking past? And you have to guess. You have to guess a concept if you're going to pick a concept. But do a Google search on that restaurant, see what they were doing, see what their reputation was like, see what other restaurants of that type and how many are in the same area, and what their reputations are like in comparison. Some places will open restaurants with very little options, and maybe that doesn't suit the clientele that are walking past every evening or day. So if they're focused on, you know, just hot dogs for example, then, you know, if 4 people are out, do they all want hot dogs? Probably not. So, you know, that's going to lose you customers. The concept could have been wrong, but yeah, that's something you should look at. It could have also been a large chain that have shut down a lot of restaurants, so that could be a good opportunity. If it's been a big company that maybe shut 200 restaurants, maybe they've got 500 restaurants and they've shut 200 of them down. Yeah, so maybe the large chain wasn't focused on the local area enough, so that's something you can do essentially, is to look and see the market and see what people want. Another reason why it might have failed would be that the business wasn't viable due to running costs. So look at things like the ceiling. Maybe it's got a really high ceiling, so the electric bill is going to be really high. Maybe it's got a lot of floor space, so needs 20 staff just to get the doors open, so the wage cost is going to be really high. So there's that kind of thing as well. So you can maybe assess that from viewing it, or maybe you can sometimes get previous financials from the landlord, and can get it from the previous business that had it, or they can get you that information as to why. Again, obviously you can ask. Sometimes you'll find out why they failed just by asking when you go to view the property. So you can sometimes get that information, but just be careful in that, because sometimes people will tell you what you want to hear, and it's not always the case. You could get told that they had sort of personal issues and they had to leave the business, but that could be utter nonsense. It could be that the business costs were just extortionate and the business wasn't a viable business, and that's why it's another good reason to lease, because if the business starts out to be viable but rising costs change and make it not viable anymore, you've got an easier exit strategy as well. So back to the exit strategy. But so the last factor we consider is the building furnished or unfurnished, and is the restaurant kitted out? Does it have what you need for your concept? Is the kitchen fully fitted? Is the kitchen fully fitted out, or is it stripped right back to the wall? Now, if the kitchen's fully fitted and it's got all the equipment, and the restaurant's fully kitted out, then it's going to cost you a lot less, obviously, to get the place up and running. I've taken on restaurants where there's been fully fitted kitchens and the bar and the restaurant is fully decorated, and all I've had to do is change the branding because it was so nicely done. So there's occasions where that can happen. Those opportunities are available depending on the circumstances of the previous tenant. However, if you do have a place that's right back to the brick, then you have to consider your costs for that as well. So that's something else to consider. So hopefully that's given you some insight into some of the factors that you should consider when opening your own restaurant and looking for a property. I hope it's helped you, and if there's anything else I can help with, please leave me a note in the comments if there's any other content you'd like me to make. But thanks very much for watching the video, and hopefully we'll see you on the next one. Please like and subscribe this video to help my channel. I really appreciate it. Thank you.